Hello and welcome to the very first video from Retro Gaming Banter, aka RGB. We are starting off with a retro restore of an Atari 520 STFM. It was released around 1986 and as you can see it's very yellowed from age. It looks like it's been left in the sun, probably with the window on the right side as it's more yellowed in those areas. I have powered it on already and it boots to the desktop and everything appears to be working fine with the actual Atari, although as expected the internal disk drive is not working. My first guess is that the disk drive belt has melted away and snapped. It happens on just about every tape and disk drive of this age. So the retro restore should be fairly straightforward. Take it all apart, clean everything, and then retrobright the case and keyboard keys, and then obviously put it all back together. So we start off with opening up the Atari ST case. There's a bunch of screws on the bottom which hold the case together, as well as keeping the internal drive secure. Lifting up the case gives us the first look inside. You can see the power supply shield on the top left, the internal disk drive on the top right, and a very grimy looking keyboard at the bottom. There's some screws covering the disk drive connection shield, so let's remove those to start with. Underneath are the data and power cables. I will take a look at the disk drive a bit later on. Removing the keyboard connector is straightforward. Again, we'll take a look at the keyboard in more detail a bit later. The power supply shield, like the motherboard shield, is held in with those annoying metal tabs that you need to twist with a pair of pliers. I really do hate these tabs. Removing that gives us a look at the power supply. Now to get access to the motherboard by removing the shield. Again, it's those annoying metal tabs to twist. After some prodding around, it looked like it would be easier to remove the power supply board before removing the motherboard shield. So there's two screws holding it in place and it kind of slides out towards you whilst you're moving it. With the power supply removed, getting to the motherboard shield was far easier. And we can get a good look at the motherboard now. Overall it looks to be in very good condition with next to no dust. The motherboard lifts out fairly easily and that's our Atari 520 STFM dismantled. The bottom of the case looks to be in very good condition with no scuffs or cracks. It should be simply cleaning up the case and then retrobrighting in it. You can see that one side of the case is very yellow compared to the other. This might be a bit of an issue while retrobrighting as it can cause uneven colouring. I do have an idea for that which I'll show later in the video. Now to take a closer look at the rest of the Atari, starting with the keyboard. It's definitely seen 30 odd years of dirt and dust build up and God knows what else. A keyboard key puller is a must if you are planning to remove keys. You can pick these up from eBay and Amazon for a couple of quid and yeah, they make pulling out keys very easy. This is especially important on older keyboards as the plastic may be brittle and crack or break if there's not even pressure whilst you're pulling the key. My camera battery ran out whilst removing the keys, but as you can see it's fairly straightforward. Something to be aware of is that some keys may have metal bars underneath, such as the space bar. These need to be a bit more carefully removed, otherwise you may break the plastic tabs where the bar connects. We have a bunch of keys that will first need to be cleaned and then retrobrighted, but first we will take a look at the actual keyboard and clean that up. Using an anti-static brush, I first remove any very loose debris. I then remove the keyboard bars for the space key. It's just 2 clips on either side. They are a pain in the arse to get back in again, going by previous experience with other keyboards. Once the debris is out of the way, we can get to loosening up all the grime with a few sprays of isopropyl alcohol. This stuff is great for loosening dirt and removing scuff marks. So just let it work into the grime for a few moments and then scrub it with the brush to get it loose. Previously I've used cotton buds to remove all the dirt, but since nicking the missus cotton pads for removing makeup, these do the jobs much better. After that, I gave it a quick blast with the CompuCleaner air blower. They do cost a bit of money, but if you're using a lot of compressed air, all the cans do add up to quite a bit, so get one of these. Now onto washing those keyboard keys that have God knows what amount of 30 years of grime on them. I have a bowl of lukewarm water with some fairy liquid. You don't want it too hot or you could make the plastic soft and the keys may bend. Let them soak in the water for a bit and then borrow the missus toothbrush and clean all the keys. This takes absolutely ages doing one by one, but you will need to get any dirt off before retrobrighting, otherwise it won't restore the colour there. Once they are all washed, dry them with a towel. Like I said, it does take a long time, but definitely worth it. They are all ready for retrobrighting now, finally. Now onto the case, starting with the top half. As the case is quite large, it won't fit into the bowl, but some water and the toothbrush will do just fine for getting into the grill. Moving on to a sponge, obviously using only the sponge side so not to scratch the case. Using lukewarm water and fairy liquid again to clean the case. And once it's done, dry it with a towel. There were some what looked like specks of paint on the grill, so I removed them with a metal prier. They come off easily enough. And then a quick blast with the air blower to remove any loose bits and just to dry it off a bit more. I repeat the process for the bottom half of the case using a sponge to wash everything over, and then obviously a quick blast with the air blower. And don't forget to clean the screw holes as they can have quite a bit of dirt in them. And now onto the mouse. Like the main case, this has quite a bit of yellow in, but is otherwise in great condition and works just fine. There are just the 2 screws at the top holding the case together, and thankfully none under the sticker, which would mean damaging that, so everything's good here. And now onto the retro brightening process. There's many ways of doing this and everyone claims that theirs is the best way. For me, living in the UK, we don't see much sunlight, so instead of waiting for 2 weeks a year where it's half decent, I use a plastic container, ultraviolet LEDs and peroxide cream. While it does take longer than other ways of doing it, it does the job for me and I've never had any issues with it. Like I said, everyone has their own way of doing it and yeah, this works fine. You can pick up a bottle of 40% peroxide cream, that should be enough to retrobrite one computer or console. This will cost around £2 from Boots or Amazon. You will also need some cling film to wrap the parts up. This helps the cream not evaporate as fast. You will also need some brushes. This depends on the size of what you're going to be applying the cream to. You will also need some gloves. I'm using the good old Marigolds. Disposable gloves cost a fortune at the moment due to Corona. Some other things you may need are masking tape to help keep the cling film secure, and you can also use this to mark off any areas such as stickers so the cream does not go on them. So you start off with a good amount of cream on the brush as it does soak it up a bit, and then yeah, just simply start applying it to the case. You want a good amount on the case so it does not dry up fast and cause areas not to brighten. Make sure to get in all the grooves and especially the edges of areas, as these may be visible when you put everything back together. The grill got some extra attention to ensure that the cream was covering inside of the grill. While I've done quite a bit of retrobrighting in the past, it's the first time I've done a large grill like this, so I was interested to see how this would come out after. It's a personal choice if you want to retrobrite inside of the case. From experience, the insides of cases are not that yellowed and will likely not need retrobrighting. And there's also the fact that you're unlikely to see the inside of the case once it's all put back together. Once everything is covered in cream, you can wrap it up in cling film. As the Atari is quite a larger case, you will need to cover it half and half, and don't forget to leave extra space on all the sides so that it will cover inside the case. Flip the case over and ensure that the cling film is secure in place. Here you can use some tape to do that if needed. What you want to do is keep the wrapping as airtight as possible, as this helps to slow down the evaporation of the cream. You won't get it fully airtight, but just try and get it as best as you can. And now onto the retrobrighting box. It's essentially a large plastic storage container with two rolls of UV LEDs facing inside. One goes around the sides and the other covering the top. Then there is aluminium foil on the outside to reflect the light, keeping it inside the box. You can build this for around 25 to 30 quid. I'll put some links in the description where to buy it. So place the case inside and yeah, just put the lid on and switch on the LEDs and go make a cup of tea. The process of retrobrighting can vary depending on how yellow the part is and also the UV LED's power. You can buy more expensive UV lamps, which does speed up the process. What I would advise when first doing this is just to check every hour or so and check that the cream is not dried out, and also massage the cream around so that it evens out. With my setup, I do this every 3-4 hours, and the process can take anything from 6 to 24 hours depending on how yellow the part is. You may possibly need to add cream if it's a longer period of time. That wraps up part 1 of this Atari Retro Restore. In the second part we will be taking a look at the disk drive, retrobrightening the rest of the parts and then putting everything back together for the big unveil. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and we hope to see you in part 2 next Friday.